Hi, I'm Anna Spencer. Today I get a real thrill. I get to talk about my favorite subject, which is citizens' assemblies. But you know what? It's in the different context because I have never talked to anybody before who was advocating that we sort of trash the U.S. Constitution and start over. And boy, that's bold. I mean, maybe that's not really what he means, but he's working on it. This is Dr. Paul White Zeitz. He's in Silver Spring, Maryland, and he tells me his training was as a physician and epidemiologist, but for many years now, several decades, he's been working on political advocacy. So he is the head of something called Unify, which I'm going to spend a little while trying to find out what that is. And he has a book called Hit Refresh on the U.S. Constitution. And there's a subtitle, A Revolutionary Roadmap for Fulfilling the Promise of Democracy. Now, isn't that great? So hit refresh. We're going to start all over and get a new constitution. And he's got it set up so that we're going to meet, I don't know, in Philadelphia maybe or something a year from now, approximately, and rewrite our Constitution. I say ours because I'm a dual citizen. I've lived in Canada for 54 years, I think now, but I'm a citizen both of Canada and the U.S. And to be honest, I find the U.S. politics a whole lot more engaging than Canadian politics. I mean, it's more civilized here, but it's more fun in the U.S. if you have the nerves for it, and it takes a lot of sturdy nerves these days. So, hi, Paul, how are you?
Great, Meta. Thank you so much for having me on your show, and I look forward to this conversation. Yeah.
Well, okay, I see in the background you have some of the books in your window. I can't read them all. But why don't you reach over and pull them up and hold them up to the camera, okay?
Sure.
You do that?
Yeah, so I published my memoir, Waging Justice, in 2018. It's
yeah.
a really tell-all, basically from birth through 2015. Then last year I published a handbook called Revolutionary Optimism, 7 Steps for Living as a Love-Centered Activist. And the thesis of this one is that our self-healing, our self-realization is integrally linked to our collective transformation. So this is really a practical guide with practices and examples and stories of leaders around the world, of regular people actually stepping up and becoming part of the transformation that we all seek. And this is my newest book this year I just published. This is me in my self-realization, putting out a vision for what I think is possible and urgently needed. And I wanted to clarify, I'm not advocating at all for trashing or throwing out our Constitution. Rather, I'm advocating for reconstructing it. And that is a very different intention. It means keep the good stuff, get rid of the bad stuff, and add in new stuff for the future. So it is a reconstruction approach or refresh, but it's to honor and respect the positive aspects of our Constitution. The Constitution is a social contract between the people and its government. And I think that contract has run its course. 80% of the American public thinks our democracy is not working, our political system is broken, and there's a wide consensus on the things that Americans would like to see. So the problem is that the political system, the duopoly, controlled by political elites, basically, are controlling the political system, and we have the opportunity as the people of the United States to create a next experiment, the next phase of our experiment to fulfill on what Abraham Lincoln called a government of, by, and for the people. That's the essence of what democracy could be here. We're not actually designed as that right now. were designed as a republic with elites controlling the population. That was how the Constitution was written 238 years ago. It's still working that way. And so I think now we have to like shake off the dust and refresh it for the future.
Well, look, I agree with you absolutely, but I'm not sure I agree that the majority of the U.S. population does too, because I mean they keep voting for Trump, and you know there's just no way you can reconcile those. If it, I don't get.
Well, can I just clarify that? Because 37% of eligible voters did not participate in the last election. It's like 90 million people. So that were eligible to vote. So like when we say that he got a majority, he actually only got a minority. If you think about like he got 77 million or 78 million votes, Kamala got like 75 million, and then 90 million didn't vote. He doesn't represent the population of the United States. He represents a minority, actually. And so, yes, the system allowed him legally to be elected president. But slavery was legal too. And, you know, we know that we now know even more clearly than we knew when he got elected, not for the second time, that he's implementing an authoritarian project. Experts believe that we are now an autocracy in the United States. So the illusion of us being a democracy is shattered. And but we have an opportunity to grab it back if we choose.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, here's one question in my own mind, and that is of the people who voted for him, if you ask them what kind of changes they would like to see in the U.S. Constitution or in the way the government actually functions, what kinds of changes would they want? I imagine, and I want to believe, and I want to agree with what you are driving at, which is that the reason they keep voting for Trump is that they're disgusted with everything else, and they think, well, what else have you got? And I'll vote for this guy because I don't know what else there is, but I'd really, really like to have a real democracy. I don't know if that's true. Can you look at any of the poll data and say that, or is it really the case that they want a man on a horse, you know, a strong dictator kind of type, and that they got what they wanted? I just don't know.
I think they're not monolithic, right? The MAGA movement or the people backing Trump, you know, he formed a coalition that got him elected. You know, there is a very powerful movement called the Convention of States Project, which is a conservative movement focused on overhauling the Constitution. And they've been up and running since 2013. They have 19 states have passed a resolution calling for an Article 5 convention. And I'll read you very quickly what they're proposing. They want to limit an Article 5 constitutional convention to propose amendments that impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and limit the terms of office for its officials and for members of Congress. They want to reestablish a check and balance between the federal government and states. So they want to up the states' responsibility and rights. They want fiscal responsibility, and they want term limits so that
fiscal responsibility is different from what it sounded like. Sounded like you're saying
fiscal restraints on the federal government. Yeah,
you can't spend any money. That is a real old-fashioned conservative position.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing new about that.
Yeah. And at the conference, I went to their conference. They had a grassroots leadership summit last week. I went and listened and learned and met people. And, you know, Rick Santorum, former senator from Pennsylvania, spoke. He said, we are not a democracy, and that is not our goal. We are a republic. They want to take control of the republic, and they want their conservative ideology to run the roost, basically. So they're not advocating for what Unify USA and many other, a supermajority, I believe, wants a more authentic democracy of, by, and for the people. That's not what they're advocating for.
So you can't really hope to recruit much support from that source. I was hoping that maybe if you just pitch it a little differently and say, well, we understand why you got desperate enough to vote for Trump, but here's what you really wanted, and here's what we've got that might work better.
No, I think you're right. I agree with what you just said, and I think we can do that. I think at the leadership level, they're wired into the MAGA movement and to the Project 2025 movement, the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 movement, which is merged with MAGA movement and Christian nationalists, and they are running the government. They do not believe in democracy. They believe in autocracy. So that's why we're seeing what's happening, the dismantling of norms, the dismantling of the federal government, all these things, the challenging of judicial independence, the checks and balances between Congress and the executive branch. No, they don't support that. They want unitary executive authority. That's the theory that they're implementing fully now with full velocity. Like they are moving very fast. Their authoritarian project is going according to their plan very well.
Okay, now you've surprised me already because you've mentioned, I think, 3 different organizations. It's not just MAGA. MAGA may be composed of different strands or something. Can you explain what these different outfits are?
Yeah, the MAGA is the Donald Trump brand. He has taken over the Republican Party. He has fused with the corporate and Christian national elites that have run the Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, which is a think tank. They've had a 30-year, 40-year project to try to bring conservative control to the federal government. They control the Supreme Court now. They control Congress and they control the executive branch. So they have trifecta control: MAGA plus Project 2025, Christian nationalist conservative movement. It's a constellation that has aligned. Now, the people at the grassroots, I agree with what you said earlier, they were looking for disruption. And they felt like Trump, by his personality and his charisma, is a disruptor by nature. And so they've gone along with it. But they won't see the benefits to their daily life and to their daily struggle. Americans agree, 80% agree to the right to health. Americans want safe schools. They want affordable food. They want a fair wage. Then when they find that this MAGA Project 2025 movement is not going to deliver that to them, which is true, it will not lead to that, what they're up to, then there's going to be a backlash against MAGA. It's already starting. There's a leaving MAGA movement. The MAGA movement is already fractured and fracturing. They're doing whatever they can to try to consolidate it and entrench authoritarian rule as fast as possible. But it's wobbly right now. And most Americans are not happy about the abrogation of our freedom of speech, of our right to due process, the fundamental constitutional principles that we all cherish. People are seeing that this government run by these movements are anti-constitutional.
Okay, now I'd already sort of noted that there were real reasons to believe that MAGA wouldn't hold together. When shortly after the election, or about the time of the election, it became apparent that the Silicon billionaires, Silicon Valley, the AI guys and the guys who were taking over the whole internet and so on, that their goals were much more toward their own interests and not compatible with what I think poor people in Kentucky are looking for. And that I would think that, and not only that, but the cultural backlash, because a lot of the MAGA movement, I think, has to do with restoring old-fashioned culture, the values of keep a gun and let boys not
Your wife at home and
use
let her
girls'
take care of the house.
toilets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things like that. Anti-gay marriage, and old-fashioned cultural things, and that's not what those guys in Silicon Valley are talking about. So I thought, well, okay, that's going to be a reason for the whole structure of MAGA to split, because these guys don't really belong in MAGA, as I understand it. But I don't
Yeah.
know that it's happened. And
It hasn't happened yet. There are like, schisms happening, but it hasn't collapsed. Obviously, they're still running the government, but it can collapse, and it will collapse at some point somehow. You're right. The tech billionaires are in it. They want to operate supranationally, so they have so much money and power right now that they control the legislative Congress, their lobbyists, and also in the EU. I worked in the EU on issues around tech safety, and I saw the same thing goes on there. The tech companies use their cash to control the legislatures. And they prevent there from being any kind of regulation or oversight of what they're up to. And
well,
so
we
they
hope
want to
that.
operate in a supranational way.
Yeah, yeah.
And Trump has he's catered to them to ensure that they are aligned with his, dismantling of the federal government and the administrative state. So,
Well,
and
I don't think they're doing as well in the EU as they are in the US, because the EU has put in some kind of regulation of the AI, and they're totally different politics about the Middle East and Gaza and
yeah,
Ukraine and so on.
that's true.
So they're I don't know that it looks to me like there are a lot of different strains within this right wing movement that can't possibly hang together if they really listen to what each other is saying. And
I mean, Europeans that I've talked to in the last 6 months are rattling with fear. They see the rise of autocrats like Trump all over Europe. They see the attack on institutions like NATO and the EU even being wobbly. And these post-World War II institutions, including the UN, all that architecture and all that way that was created to prevent autocrats and war, is all wobbling right now. And people are really, and you heard Trump this week talking at the UN, like, you guys are all trash. So the ripple effect of the MAGA movement is happening all over the world, including in Europe. And we're in a very volatile time, a very unstable time. And I hope we'll see what's happening like in Nepal, where the people rise. And we're seeing the Palestinian liberation movement and the solidarity with the liberation of the atrocities of the genocide is a manifestation of these corporate elites and these Christian nationalists. That fusion is what's taking over our government, and it's allowing us to be the funders of a genocide. I mean, it's all the same thing. Yeah. So you're right. Europe is different, but because there are 28 states in the EU, it's hard to get them to coalesce. I was doing advocacy and lobbying in the EU on controlling tech companies and making sure that children were safe in Europe. And the tech billionaires and their lobbyists destroyed the legislation and destroyed common sense efforts to protect children in Europe from online child safety issues. So I saw they may be slightly ahead of us, but on the macro perspective, they're not winning against these corporate giants, in my view.
You got me scared, because I really had been just this morning reading stuff in the New York Times about how and two or three blogs also that Trump is losing support in the U.S. Now, if it sounds like you think that in the larger scale he is going to win, So,
Well, no, I hope he is losing support. He's got 37% support.
mm,
But they control the government. They have trifecta control of the government, and they're rolling out the authoritarian project. So they've changed the norms already. They're bringing the military into the United States to go after
mm,
citizens. They're violating due process. They're challenging birthright citizenship. They will likely, in my view, invoke the 1807 Insurrection Act, and at a certain point, he can and probably will, according to experts I've talked to in the last month, declare martial law of some sort,
mm,
and he can do election capture, and he can rewrite the rules of the Constitution to entrench their conservative right-wing power for decades. That is what authoritarians do. It's
mm,
not unique.
mm,
It's unique to the United States. We've never had this threat before in our history, but it was anticipated by our founders. And so now we're the ones that are living through this situation. And we have, Congress isn't going to stop it. That's clear. The courts are not going to stop it. That's clear. The only option right now is for the citizens. And I believe we have a supermajority. We have 2/3 or even 3/4 of the country that do not want to live under an autocratic system of government. We have to get our act together and converge to transform this, to refresh the Constitution, refresh state constitutions, to reestablish a new social contract.
okay.
We cannot let this happen.
I want to
Yeah.
talk about the content of the reforms that you want to put in. But first, I just have to say, sounds like it isn't so much that we need to make any changes, although I can see a lot of changes to make, but that if we just live by the Constitution we have, we'd be, way ahead, because they're not, I mean, Congress is not using its own rights. It's surrendered its power to the president. Same with the Supreme Court. He's packed it with his cronies. And so they will defer to him and let him do whatever he wants to do so far.
Well, I mean, I would say that the whole political system has been taken over by dark money. Billionaire money runs the government, both the executive branch, the judicial branch, some independence there, but it's wobbling now. And Congress is totally under the command and control of lobbyist dark money. So that's what the American people know. Most Americans understand that and are frustrated by it. They think that Trump was going to blow that up, although he's part of that dark money system as well. And that's where he's been able to dupe them by wrapping himself in patriotism and wrapping himself in Christian nationalism. And they use the calling of Jesus Christ as a peacemaker and a love maker as their mission and mandate, and so people follow that. But then I heard this directly last week. They said, and they want to kill us, and they want to stop us from being able to speak our word, so we have to stop them. Mm-hmm. And they invoked the Old Testament and Ezekiel and said that we have to stop these people that won't let us have our right to free speech. Mm-hmm. And they used Charlie Kirk's assassination. They leveraged it to invoke fear and to rally their troops. Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization, had 11,000 chapters the day he was assassinated, and now they have 70,000 chapters. You have the state of Oklahoma requiring Turning Point chapters at every high school. So the conservative Christian nationalist movement is accelerating their authoritarian project to impose their view. This is not new. This has been going on for thousands of years in history, like the battle between the people versus the oligarchs. So I think we're at an exciting moment of reckoning in the United States. People across the political spectrum, principled Republicans, independents, Democrats, and are realizing we have to step up and engage in healing and transforming our democracy. How and when that could happen, I don't know. But I think it's happening.
You've given us three words. I want to we've used half our time already, so I want to get
Oh
right
my
to
God.
more specifics. You use the word unify. I want to know about that. But
Yeah.
also, your agenda seems to have two different prongs. One is this effort to refresh the U.S. Constitution, whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
But the other is the angle on citizens' assembly. And I want to talk about all three of those. So
Okay.
I don't know how they hang together. What
They're
is
all, yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
what is
Yes, so
unify?
Unify USA is a interpartisan, nonpartisan political movement that's focused on advocating for citizens' assemblies to refresh the Constitution. So that's the bridge there. The reason, the idea behind it, the theory of change or the theory of transformation is that our current government is run by dark money. We have a dark money driven democracy or republic. And the idea that we're advocating for is to refresh it so that we have a citizen driven democracy. And there is a long history and a lot of evidence and data showing that citizens' assemblies, as a method, as a way, as a practice, can restore truth and trust in politics. And it's by creating spaces where people listen and learn together, they deliberate, and then they come to a rough consensus.
Mhm.
And that's that rough consensus that becomes the driver of transformation.
I'm actually advocating for something even bigger, but I mean, we don't get in each other's way on this. And that would be at the UN, an extra house, a house of the people. That is to say, a a uh, a house that's staffed as a citizens' assembly through sortition of the entire human population. And I think that can be done. It can be we could even make a beginning with it with doing it by Zoom with give me a couple of million dollars and I could do it. I could set it up.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I support that idea. I mean, I think we're advocating for a fourth branch of government
mhm,
in the United States. It would be a permanent citizens' assembly. The
mhm,
city of Paris is the only jurisdiction that has a permanent citizens' assembly, and Eastern Belgium. So
mhm,
there's two jurisdictions that have permanent assemblies, but
mhm.
I think every state should have one permanent, and federally we should have one. And certainly in a transformed international architecture, whether it's called the UN or whatever it's called in the future, yes, a House of the People. The UK right now, there's a very large campaign called, that's focused on replacing the House of Lords with the House of the People. They've actually started convening the House of the People,
Really.
and it is a sortition-based effort. So there is the last 20 years, there's been over 1,000 citizens' assemblies around the world.
Okay.
Now there's a wave of them happening in the United States at the local level. There's more. There was a first one at the state level last year in New Hampshire, and now this year there's many more being planned for later this year and early next year, and going forward. So I
Go
think
to that. Go.
all over Europe, all over Europe. I mean, countries all over Europe are using citizens' assemblies at the local level and at different levels of government for complex issues and for constitutional transformation.
Right. Go to Gavin Newsom, get him to start one in California and make a big lot of noise about it, how good it is. And that will start a pressure for other states to do it. And I think maybe that's the way to go about it, working to get states to put in citizens' assemblies as a regular thing. Some of them might do it. And then that would create a motion to get the whole country to be
Yeah,
interested.
well, Gavin Newsom knows about what Unify is up to. I mean, I know 100% that his office has been informed. Whether he has, I can't say.
Mhm.
He understands deliberative democracy, participatory democracy.
Mhm.
He has studied models of it, like in Taiwan, he's very familiar with. He has a California initiative called Engage, which they just launched this year to engage citizenry in various issues. They started with the preventing future fires in LA.
Mhm.
They want to take on other issues. He decided politically to pursue this gerrymandering political action as his main topic right now. whether or not it will work to prevent election capture by the authoritarian project remains to be seen. I think that my responsibility is like say, okay, fine, you do that, go for it. And if it doesn't work, you need another plan. And the plan that we have is to have what you just said, state citizens assemblies coming forward with the innovation, the ideas from the states about how they want to refresh the state and federal constitutions. That's the key right now. And it will happen. I just don't know how or when.
Okay, give me more information about this Unify thing. Is this an organization, or is it just what goes on in that office I see you in?
No, I mean, Unify USA, we have about 10,000 citizens that have joined us. We just launched this year. We have like 150 or so in almost every state. And we're preparing and being ready when there is a readiness by a large number of people to rapidly expand, to implement this vision of citizens' assemblies to refresh the Constitution. So we anticipated this situation that we're in, not exactly all the details about how they're going about it. They are implementing their authoritarian project with extreme velocity. And so there is a ripening and a readiness for big, bold ideas. And we have our idea out there. So I think our intent was to activate the citizens of the United States. Like I said, it's not going to be the politicians in Congress. It's not going to be the Democratic Party. It's not going to be the judicial branch. They're all trying to resist the authoritarian project. And that's really important work. And I support it 1,000%. But it's not working. The authoritarian project is still rolling forward. What Gavin Newsom is doing with the gerrymandering thing, it's a good resistance effort, but it's not stopping the velocity of the authoritarian project. It might, if it succeeds wildly. So we're just saying there's another thing that we have in our toolbox, which is to refresh the Constitution with a supermajority of the country.
Okay, you already had a meeting of some kind recently, and I presume that's your Unify movement, and that this was a planning session of some kind. Tell me, in pragmatic terms, what you're actually doing. What's your program right now?
We are convening a brain trust of leaders across the country at the state level that are working on the renewal of our democracy and who are focused on structural transformation and not incremental policy reform, structural policy reform. We're convening these stakeholders and also the ones that are working on citizens' assemblies. So there's like a movement building tactic, which is to bring people in together and connecting the folks thinking about policy transformation to the folks that are working on citizens' assemblies and to bring those ideas together. Because we have to have a method for participatory democracy in order to achieve the transformation that we imagine. And citizens' assemblies is that mechanism.
Okay.
So right now we have Iowa. I'll tell you concretely in Iowa, they are hosting a virtual citizens' assembly on amendments to the U.S. Constitution in December and January. They're going to have it at libraries across the state. And they have a technology platform where they're going to get ideas, and they're going to then allow citizens of Iowa to vote on those ideas. They're going to rank them, and then Iowa is going to put forward its version of what amendments it wants to see.
Okay.
And we hope that will be replicated in many more states around the country.
You've got a new batch of founding fathers, right? Thinking up what kinds of amendments you want to make to the Constitution. So
we want to invite the people of the United States to be the new founders. Exactly right.
Well, yeah, but people don't just go to a meeting without ever having thought about what it is they want. They need to have deliberated a lot about what they're going to propose when they get to the meeting about what to propose. So tell me.
We want to use virtual technology like polis and deliberative polling, where you can involve thousands of people. We want to make this the most participatory democratic experiment in history, actually. And we have the technology. It is available right now to be scaled. And I think people are like working on figuring out how to scale it. And we have a way of like, we can make this happen. We can if we choose. Yeah.
I completely agree. In fact, I'm working to put on an inquiry through Project Save the World in October and mostly in November. And we can't do sortition, but we can do otherwise a deliberation on AI, which is what we're going to be doing. But, we can do one next time on what kind of constitution people need. Of course, we're in Canada, so we don't have the same urgency that people in the US do. But in any case, I want to know what are some of, if you were going to yourself introduce a motion to propose a change in one of the articles of the Constitution, or 10 or 12 of them, which ones would you change, and what would your top priority be right now if you were the one making the new Constitution? You were Jefferson or somebody.
Thank you so much. I have my ideas, but I don't think they matter. I think that what matters is the participatory engagement of the American public, and I trust the people to discern a way forward. That being said, the way I'm thinking about it is in terms of amendment bundles. Frequently, over the past 50 years, there's a huge number of like specific amendment campaigns that are all failing and are not making any headway. So I think the only way forward is to think about it in terms of amendment bundles. We're at a situation where this document is so old and so broken, and then it's the way what we've learned about how it's not working is apparent by the autocratic project, the autocracy that we're living under right now. So the buckets that I would focus on are, one is election reform, making elections more participatory and independent of political parties. Political parties should not be figuring out voting congressional districts, right? It should be independent. And Michigan has an independent, sortition-based, citizen-led group that is responsible for determining congressional districts in the state of Michigan. California has a similar option. That should be federalized. We should depoliticize the election system and make it fair and honest and respectable. I think we have to get rid of the Electoral College, and I think we can go to a national popular vote immediately. We can even bring in mobile voting, safe, secure, and universally accessible. We could do that immediately, so we could close that gap of the 90 million eligible voters who didn't even participate. Some countries like Australia and others require people to vote, and as a civic responsibility, like you're required to go to jury duty. That's another participation approach that is required. It is available to us. The Second Amendment bundle is around reestablishing checks and balances between the branches of the federal government and between the federal government and state governments. That is all messed up right now. And so we could establish a fourth branch of government, a citizens' assembly. We could establish fiscal constraints. I do believe the out of control fiscal deficits that the federal government, both Democrats and Republicans, have created over the last 30 years is unsustainable, and we need to deal with it. And I'm open to discussing term limits and other aspects of getting rid of the entrenched political party system that's ruining our society. And then there's another group of amendments that are called guaranteed rights. I think we should have a guaranteed fair wage. I think we should have established the right of nature. 100 constitutions around the world and some state governments in the United States even have provisions in their constitutions establishing a relationship between the people and the environment. And we do not have that at the federal level, and we absolutely need that. We need to reestablish the economic approach of our government and our society towards closed loop and circular economy rather than extractive economy. We cannot solve the climate emergency under this Constitution. So if there's anything that drives us into urgent action, it should be the threat to our species from the climate emergency. So those are a few off the top of my head. I believe in gender parity. I think that women have had the right to vote for over 100 years now, but they only have 20% or 25% of representation in our federal government, Congress, Senate, and House. That's an abomination to me. Like, we need to ensure gender parity in representation. Not to say that all women are going to agree with my political views. They definitely won't. But it's not about agreement. It's about listening and learning and deliberating and coming up with win-win solutions. And we can recreate all this if we work together towards that.
Well, I like practically everything you've said, although my skepticism really is back to where I was a few minutes ago when I said that really, if you say that the problem is that big money has taken over and is ruining things, then you could change the Constitution, and big money, if it still is there doing its thing, you won't get any more adherence to the new Constitution than you are getting to the current one. So I guess.
Yeah, that's why it is a social contract. So we do need a political and cultural revolution as well. Peaceful, 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 peaceful. Everything I'm talking about is a peaceful transformation. And it's about nonviolence. It's about using peaceful, the right of the people to assemble, and the right of the people to be in a dialogue, and the right of the people to listen and learn from each other. And
what about
harvesting? Corporations should not have. That's what's really interesting about the MAGA movement, right? They have this whole making America healthy again, the MAHA movement, right? So there was a guy from the White House that spoke last week at the Convention of States meeting, and he talked about the corporate kleptocracy, the corporations that are controlling the medical and food systems, creating massive chronic disease, and it's just feeding their coffers. So, I mean, that was an aligned analysis.
I'm really puzzled by that. I don't get how that's consistent with what the new policy is, for the Center for Disease Control and so on.
No, I know. It's like they're disrupting the system of corporations controlling the research, that's controlling the policymaking, that's allowing the corporations to control this whole cycle. And they made the point, which I thought was worth considering, that, for example, the food program SNAP, which is for low-income folks across the country, the government actually pays billions of dollars to Coca-Cola because they're allowed to buy Coca-Cola and processed foods with all that SNAP money. And then all that processed food leads to metabolic syndrome, which leads to diabetes and high blood pressure and heart disease. And then the pharmaceutical companies get to sell all those drugs. And then all the medical system gets set up to respond to the chronic diseases. So you get a heart stent, you get a stent in your heart, you get, dialysis and all the other procedures. And it's a vicious cycle that is created by the federal government, actually, and by the way that the political system is allowing this to happen.
I mean, the question,
the level of obesity in our young kids right now, and the level of them needing these drugs to control their diabetes and heart disease at adolescence.
That's not the place to start.
It's what?
I don't think it's the pharmaceutical companies that are ruining the country. In fact, the pharmaceutical companies, thank God, are producing things like vaccines, which Trump and Kennedy are trying to prevent.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm a vaccinologist. I worked on childhood vaccination and polio eradication. I believe in vaccines.
Yeah.
And I believe in their efficacy and their critical element. And I do agree that the distorted way that they're presenting it is very dangerous.
I
And
don't
then
think you want to.
but there's elements of truth to it too. That's the paradox of
The
it.
question is, where do you want to make your starting point in trying to
Well, they made a political calculation because they went after.
that's not where I would start.
Yeah.
I would start with Elon Musk. I would take his money away from him. I would say, hey, we're putting in some new rules about what you can do here, and
Yeah.
etc. And I would start with all of the other guys like Zuckerman and
Zuckerberg yeah.
and Bezos and the whole tribe out there, that they've got the real power. And I don't think I wouldn't blame them. I mean, I know that it's true that the pharmaceutical industry is pretty damn corrupt and self-interested, but that's not a good place to start. You want to start with
it's all interconnected. So like there's no the thing is that the dark money control of our political system includes the pharmaceutical company gives more lobbying money than most other industries combined. I mean, I think oil and gas is slightly more. The fossil fuel industry gives probably more lobbying money, but pharma is right behind it. I mean, when I worked on global AIDS, we had to fight pharma because we wanted to make life-saving AIDS medicines available to African people and people around the world at cost so that it could be affordable. But all they're interested in is like out of the skyrocketing profits for their shareholders. So they have to be held accountable too. Yeah.
You want to start with the people who are controlling public opinion. You want to start with Facebook, or you want to start with
Yeah, what I was saying,
the AI people who are going to be putting our whole survival as a species in danger because of these agents. As soon as super intelligence comes in, they're going to have agents that take control of everything. You want to start with those guys because they are whoa, are they dangerous? Whoa. I mean, they're way more dangerous than the pharmaceutical industry. And that's
I'm not saying I didn't start with that. I was just trying to clarify. Let me just clarify this point so you understand where I was coming from. I was saying that the fusion between the MAGA Project 2025 movement and MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again movement, was a clever political strategy to build their power because they were able to connect into suburban housewives and women who are raising kids, who are dealing with, in their families now, having to deal with children that are isolated, depressed, obese, requiring chronic medications. So the MAHA movement spoke to those constituents, and they swung towards Trump in the last election because the Democrats didn't offer any real solution. They were just offering themselves as an alternative to him, but they didn't come up with anything. So I'm just saying that MAHA was a political, the partnership between Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump was a political strategy to build political power. And it was clever.
You say that nobody else gave any good solutions. Well, their solution is the worst of all. It's the anti-science
I know, it's
mentality,
crazy,
right? I don't trust my doctor anymore. And
right.
The vaccine thing is only the tip of the iceberg, but it's all.
Look what they did to Tylenol this week, right?
Pardon?
They just put out guidelines. The president spoke against acetaminophen, Tylenol, and saying that was the cause of autism. So this has created like a huge, Tylenol is probably the most used product in the United States. So it disrupted our confidence and that is part of the authoritarian project, to create doubt, create confusion, create, like what you're saying, undermining science. I agree with you. But very dangerous.
The way it's disseminated is through these social groups on social media. Yeah. Disinformation, misinformation, now fake videos. I mean, I look at on YouTube now and I see videos made up of things that could not have been real. They're simply not true. and
Right.
they're not labeled. And
And you don't
that's
know.
where I
Right.
want to start, is make sure that at least they label these things. If you're looking at a fake video, it should say this has been doctored, it's not genuine.
Yeah,
And
we're advocating for a digital Bill of Rights to be included in the refreshed Constitution that articulate constitutional parameters for the digital relationship, the digital ecosystem as it evolves. So we don't have any of that. As we've said, the tech companies and those efforts are way outpacing the government's ability to put guardrails up and protect the interests of the people. We're losing that battle. So that is another element of guaranteed rights. The rights of the people to harness digital technology, including AI, for the common good, rather than for the corporate interests or for example, the genocide. All this technology is being used to implement the genocide that we see on our newsfeed every day. So we have to make never again as part of our Constitution, so that we don't allow our tax dollars and our government to be part of genocidal behavior.
But unless you change the people who can ram it through Congress and get Congress to do whatever the president asks for, then you can change the law, but it's not going to do any good. That's what
Well, that's why we're calling for we need a political revolution, a peaceful political and cultural revolution, where the people wake up out of their stupor and go, wait a second, we have to rise now. And that is starting to happen. You'll see it again on October 18th, when there's about 1,500 events being organized by Indivisible and No Kings and 5051. The people are starting to rise.
Okay.
MAGA is going to fragment. And we're in a volatile period of time, and it's exciting and scary.
No, go on and tell me more about October 18th, because I don't know anything about that. And what is this something that Unify is planning?
No, Unify is not planning this. This is the resistance movement that's resisting the authoritarian project. They've had days of action all this year. The last big one was on June 14th, which was called No King's Day. And there were the largest single day of protests in U.S. history, and there were global solidarity of that. And then the next big day is October 18th. And that is where there's
tell me, I don't have any sense that there's a center of gravity, but I live in Canada, so that's probably the part of it. Tell me how this is coming together. What organizations are
it's hundreds of organizations, local organizations, state-based organizations, national organizations, unions, faith-based leaders, the pro-democracy movement, and including groups like Indivisible that have chapters all over the country. Large numbers of, I think the No Kings on June 14th, I think there were over 250 organizations that got behind it. So that convergence is intensifying as the authoritarian project moves forward with great velocity. There's a counter response, which is this resistance movement, which is building power now. It is aligning and converging. More and more people are, getting revved up to participate. There will be a point where it gets so powerful that Trump and his MAGA Project 2025 government will invoke martial law and try to suppress it. That's what we're anticipating. That's a very likely scenario, even in the next year. And we expect that to happen before the next election, because a lot of people think that the 2026 election is going to save us. And I don't, that's possible, but we have to prepare for the fact that it may not.
It may not, because it's going to be gerrymandered and a lot of other crooked things. But, I do not have a sense that I know where there's no one phone number to call and find out how did you decide on October 18th? Who decided that? How did that get decided? That's what I'm wondering.
There's a coalition of folks that figured that out. Yeah. It was like the unions and the civic groups and, faith-based groups and veterans groups who are for democracy came together and came up with that date. Yeah, and then they've been promoting it for since early August, and it's building power towards October 18th. They'll
Well,
probably
it's good
then
to
do it
know
again in the
that
spring.
it's so democratic that it's the source of power is actually divided among a number of different outfits. However, I'm not sure that I think that is a ultimately successful way of doing things. I think that there needs to be a spokesperson or a an organization that would be the counterpart to Trump. And certainly the Democrats don't have it, nor is there internationally anyone. The Secretary General doesn't have the power. There's no international outfit. The Pope doesn't have the power. The Kremlin certainly doesn't have the power. But what I think is needed is some sort of place that if you hear Trump speak, then who are you going to hear? You go to the next person who's going to be the one to refute him and respond to him, who's a global figure. And I think something like the elders would be a great thing if they had, say, if my notion is that Harvard should give them one of the empty buildings that they've got at Harvard now because everybody's been laid off, and give them a building and say, here, come on, elders, take over, and you and Harvard University are in partnership. And anytime the press wants to get the counterpart to, the opposing view from whatever Trump says on a global scale that represents global public opinion, then they should go talk to you. And I think you need.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. First of all, I think this is the solution to the challenges that we're facing in the United States, in my view, have to come from the people of the United States. And I want to reassure you that there are movements and convergence and alignment happening and coherence emerging behind the scenes. It's not visible yet. That is fueling a pro-democracy movement. Mm-hmm. And it includes people across the political spectrum. It includes principled Republicans, independents, Democrats, and non-participating Americans who don't want to live under autocracy. And there are different wheels spinning, like the unions, like the faith-based leaders, like the civic groups, like the governors, like the former politicians. There's former government employees that are organizing. There's massive coherence and organization happening right now all over the country at the local level, state level, and federal level. How it will and I don't think it has one leader, and I don't know that it will. Maybe there will be a coalition of governors that step forward and lead, but I'm not relying on that. I think it's a citizen-led, and the big question is political legitimacy. Can we create a citizens movement that garners political legitimacy? And that is what people are working on right now.
Okay, I love the approach that you're taking in terms of citizens' assembly. I also agree that for every country, it's the people in the country, the citizens themselves, who have to really take the lead and make something happen. However, I live in Canada, and there are a lot of people outside of the U.S. who are also affected by this polycrisis, by this movement of convergence of a whole bunch of threats to humankind, right. And especially the right wing. It's led by this right wing mentality. Right. So we need to have something that actually is transnational and that actually can speak to people in every country. And that because I don't live in the U.S., I vote there when I can, but I do believe that we have to actually work to promote something that not only is valid and working within the U.S., but that is also at the international level. We have to start working on it globally to counteract this right-wing trend toward authoritarian populism. That's my view.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have published blogs and I have been privately talking. We, the citizens of the United States, me and many other regular people, we need international solidarity. And the transformation that we're seeking is like when we're successful in the United States, it will have a global ripple, and we want to be prepared for that. We want to be aligned with the citizenry movements, the citizen-driven democracy vision that we have. And I think the UN and the Sustainable Development Goals is a perfect framework that we could all get behind, you know, and actually make that that is a global movement that I am part of that's weak and wobbling now and failing to meet its objectives. Nevertheless, it did establish global connectivity about a common framework for social, economic, environmental, gender, and racial justice. It's the best that humanity's ever come up with. And like, I believe in that possibility. I don't know. The UN is so fractured and so weak right now. Maybe the UN can figure out a way to do this, but they haven't yet so far. So I don't know where they're at. But
I think we're really on the same team. And this has been wonderful. Count me in, whatever I can do to help.
Thank you, Meta.
It's been fun. Take care.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Okay, bye.